you said you did episode 1, 2, and 6, right?
That's correct.
Was 6 the one where you had just referenced it, where they had to shut all the lights off in the house because they're being followed? Was that 6?
I don't know if that's 6. No, I think that's earlier. I think. Oh, is that 6? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
yes,
you did that
6.
one, right? You did the one
that
where
is 6. Yes,
okay.
yes.
Well,
sorry, I lose track.
I can imagine.
It's all a big Ozark blur.
I can imagine. Well, there's something I noticed in that episode, and that's as far as I've gone. So I haven't seen the last 4, but there's something I noticed in that episode that I thought was really interesting is your use of camera movement. I thought that one episode in particular seems like there was a really heavy focus on blocking, camera movement, because there was a ton of these like long oneers where you would do a slow push in or a slow pull out. And there was a lot of action where, I mean, throughout the whole shot, it seemed like there were 3 or 4 shots in there, but it was really just one because the blocking was so clever. And I noticed it more in that episode than the previous 5 and wondering, first of all, am I just seeing things, or was that something that came from the director?
100%. So that episode is actually directed by our camera operator, Ben Seminoff, who's like one of the best in the business.
Look at that.
He's so talented. And he's such a good storyteller. So you're not wrong, buddy. you're 100% right. And I mean, but really like that is sort of the ethos of the show. And Ben really like took it and ran with it, you know, and I'm always down. I'm the one that's always pushing everybody like, hey, let's do this in a oneer. Let's make this work in a oneer. And it's all about making that shot engaging from top to bottom. Because if you keep it engaging, then there's not going to be a lull while you're waiting for the blocking to resolve itself. You know, so it's all about, you know, that sort of careful dance of the characters and the camera, and not making it self-conscious, because it's really easy to block something that's exciting from top to bottom. But if people are like dancing around, like that's just not natural. Human beings don't move like that. You know, we move in weird ways, and it doesn't always make sense. And so, you know, that dance is something that Ben Seminoff understands, and I really like try to understand and try to master. How do we keep a shot alive? You know, how do you stay alive? How do you see the other person's face? If you want to see that reaction, how can you get that reaction? If you're pushing into an over the shoulder, how can you change the blocking at that moment in a natural way so that you can see the person's reaction and see both people? You know, does that turn into a 2-shot? Does the person turn away just enough so you can see their face? And if that camera keeps moving around and wrapping around, then maybe you just get enough of the glimpse of the eye that you see that character's reaction. You know, that's sort of the stuff that Ben and I just like stay up late at night thinking about, to be honest. Like we're total nerds and we feed off each other. I mean, it's been, you know, the last couple seasons, him and I have just had so much fun, man. We have so much fun together.
And when it's executed well, like it has been on Ozark, you really don't realize you've just watched a oneer. It like tricks you almost. You get to the end of the scene, you're like, holy shit, that was one shot. Like, how did that happen? Because so much is going on in the frame. And you brought something else up that is really interesting, because you're right. It's like the movement of the characters has to be natural, or it'll feel almost like a musical or something, where people are just, you know, dancing around in an odd way and purposefully getting out of people's way. This felt like where everyone moved, it was supposed to be there. And I know I'm not describing this well, but anyone that sees the episode will know what I'm talking about. But there is a scene in The Office, Bird Enterprises, where I can't remember that woman's name, but the one that has the baby, the older woman that is having an affair with, okay, so.
Darlene.
Darlene, yes. So there's a shot in there where Darlene enters the office and lands just in a perfect spot between like 2 or 3 columns in the office. Are you remembering the scene I'm talking about? How she enters that scene?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember
that. I have to know, how many takes did that take to get her to land exactly in that spot at that exact moment? I can't even imagine.
I mean, I got to say, actually, it didn't take that many takes to get it. What takes the time is to set up the blocking so that it really works and makes sense. You know what I mean? And that it feels natural. And the beauty of it is that we have these amazing actors. You know, you have Laura Linney and Bateman and Julia Garner and so many talented actors, and it's really like a testament to their openness and vulnerability that we have very open discussions with them. We don't block scenes and then bring people in and tell them to hit the mark. It's like, you know, we do the scene and we talk about it, and we're open and honest about like what works for the camera, and we're descriptive and communicate clearly with the actors. You know, I think that there's a lot of sense of like, you know, don't talk to the actors and, you know, don't bother them and you're going to ruin their process. And it's like, man, you know, I think that the really good actors that I have worked with, they want to know, they want to make sure that it's working for the camera. And I have to say, like, our whole cast on Ozark is super aware and respectful. You know, there's no sort of talking down to us and we're just the crew. I mean, it is really like a family environment, from the production assistants to, you know, to Jason Bateman and Laura Linney. Like, everyone is treated with respect and kindness. And that level of communication is what makes that possible. If you don't have that sort of open communication and you're not willing to step up and say, hey, you know what, that doesn't really work for the camera. I'm trying to understand, like, how could we make this accessible? You know, what's something that works for you, that works for, like, what works best for all of us, you know, and the actors are gracious enough to understand that, like, what works best for all of us is best for the show, you know? So it's a beautiful, you know, dance. And it's also great to have actors around who are like, hey, you know, I don't think I would do that in this scene, in this moment. I wouldn't turn away, you know? I'm like, okay, cool. Like, we'll figure it out. You know, like, that's the moment where, like, we have to turn our wheels and tear our hair out and figure it out quick, you know?